The 9064th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is Women, Peace and Security, Keeping the Promises, the role of regional organizations in implementing women, peace and security in the face of political turmoil and seizures of power by force. The agenda is adopted. I'd like to warmly welcome the Secretary General and the distinguished ministers and other high-level representatives. Your presence today underscores the importance of the subject matter under discussion. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representative of Algeria, Argentina, Austria, Bulgaria, Canada, Chile, Croatia, Czech Republic, Ecuador, Egypt, Finland, Georgia, Germany, Greece, Guatemala, Italy, Indonesia, Jordan, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Malta, Morocco, Namibia, Poland, Republic of Korea, Portugal, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, South Africa, Switzerland, Thailand, Turkey, Ukraine, Uruguay, Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the following briefers to participate in this meeting. Ms. Sima Sami Bahous, Executive Director of UN Women, Her Excellency Ms. Helga Maria Schmidt, Secretary General of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Ms. Bineta Diop, Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security of the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Her Excellency Ms. Stella Groner-Grubacic, European Union Ambassador for Gender and Diversity, and Dr. Haifa Abu Ghazaleh, Assistant Secretary General, Head of Social Affairs Sector at the League of Arab States. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I wish to draw the attention of Council members to document S/2022/457, a letter dated 4 June 2022 from the Permanent Representative of Albania to the United Nations, addressed to the Secretary General, transmitting a concept paper on the item under consideration. I would like to warmly welcome the Secretary General and the distinguished ministers again, and I would like to now give the floor to the Secretary General, His Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Signora Presidente, Excellencies, gender equality offers a path to sustainable peace and conflict prevention, and yet we are moving in the opposite direction. Today's conflicts are amplifying gender inequality, poverty, climate disruption, and other forms of inequality. Women and girls are affected differently and disproportionately by the violence and by the long-term social and economic impacts of those cascading crises. Millions of girls are out of school with no prospect of training, a job, or financial independence. Rising numbers of women and girls are suffering from violence in the home. In some countries, extremists and military actors have taken power by force, cancelling previous commitments on gender equality and persecuting women for simply going about their daily lives. Around the world, the recent shift away from inclusive politics shows once again that misogyny and authoritarianism are mutually reinforcing and are antithetical to stable, prosperous societies. We meet several times a year on this issue. There is consensus among member states on the importance of this agenda. I issue regular reports. This Council has passed several resolutions, but on the ground, the situation is going backwards. And the reason is simple. Women's equality is a question of power, and today's political deadlocks and entrenched conflicts are just the latest examples of how enduring power imbalances and patriarchy are continuing to fail us.
The role of regional organizations in matters related to the Women, Peace and Security agenda have become increasingly important given the magnitude and complexity of challenges facing the international community today. Recent events in different countries and regions like Ukraine, Afghanistan, Sudan, Myanmar and Mali, to name only a few, have shown how fragile is and remains the progress we have made in the field of women, peace and security. In coordination with the UN system, member states and each other, regional organizations can provide rapid, flexible funding to women human rights defenders and women-led organizations operating in conflict and post-conflict settings. To this end, we must ensure that all regional organizations prioritize women, peace and security agenda and develop action plans or strategies for the implementation of this agenda in accordance with the Security Council Resolution 1325 and other relevant Security Council resolutions. Colleagues, Albania, throughout its participation within several regional organizations like the OSCE, NATO, and the OIC, is committed to fulfilling its duty regarding the acceleration and full implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. Women, Peace and Security Agenda was integrated as one of the priorities of Albania's OSCE chairmanship in 2020, injecting a new momentum in the OSCE's work in promoting the role of women in conflict resolution and peace processes. We are happy to see that women, peace and security continues to be prioritized by this organization. As a member of NATO, Albania is working tirelessly to reduce barriers to the active and meaningful participation of women in the security institutions at national level and within the alliance. Women today constitute almost 20% of the total armed forces personnel in Albania. At OIC, Albania is fully engaged and very supportive of every initiative that aims to strengthen the meaningful participation of women at all levels, accelerate the Women, Peace and Security agenda and the normative framework adopted during the years from the Security Council. Colleagues, I'm very happy to report on some real, bold and significant achievements on the meaningful participation of women in important decision-making processes in my country. Albania currently ranks amongst the top 5 gender-balanced governments in the world, with 75% women ministers. Some of the key highest public positions in Albania, including independent institutions, agencies, departments in key areas of the state, are successfully held by women. Albania has taken important steps towards officially embracing gender-responsive budgeting at central and local level. It is about time to bring our cooperation with the regional organizations at a new level. Only by working together in different levels can we close the huge gap between what we have achieved on paper and the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda on the ground. Especially vital is this cooperation in the context of recent military coups and seizure of power by force, where we have witnessed national commitments on women, peace and security abruptly interrupted. Thank you. Ms. Sima Sami Bahus.
As we just heard from the Secretary General, our world is facing the highest number of violent conflicts since 1945. By some estimates, democracy around the world has been backsliding 16 consecutive years. Climate change is further increasing inequalities and fueling tensions. Drought and desertification are, as with all crises and conflicts, directly increasing gender-based violence. These interrelated facts hold us all back from achieving our aspirations, and women and girls are bearing the brunt of descents into conflict or coups. This cannot continue. It is contrary to everything that has been committed in these very chambers, starting with Resolution 1325. It is contrary to our effective and collective promise of Agenda 2030 and a more sustainable and peaceful future. It was also committed to in March this year at the 66th Commission on the Status of Women, CSW. The Commission resulted in the first ever agreed conclusions focusing on gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in the context of climate, environment, and disaster risk reduction. We must all work together to take the promise made at CSW forward. Excellencies, any way or conflict impacts the entire life cycle of women and girls, from disrupting education to early forced marriage, sexual and gender-based violence, lack of livelihoods, food insecurity, lack of access to shelter, sanitation, and dignity. It sets us back decades. Look to Ukraine, where the war has now surpassed 100 painful days. Reports of sexual violence are increasing. Human trafficking is increasing, and millions, and mostly women, children, and older persons have fled their homes. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Helga Maria Schmidt.
Madam President, Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to address today's opening debate on the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, a top priority for the OSCE and for me personally. We are living through extremely challenging times. Russia's war on Ukraine is having a devastating impact on innocent civilians and infrastructure and is in direct contradiction to the core principles that underpin European and global security order. Women and girls have been the victims of rape and are at higher risk of trafficking and violence. The consequences of the war against Ukraine is also threatening food and energy security. Prices of food and basic goods are increasing with disastrous economic and humanitarian consequences on the poorest households, many of which are actually headed by women. Communities in Ukraine are not only exposed to violence and destruction, but also to air and water pollution, as well as hazardous waste contamination. In 2021, I launched the OSCE networking platform for women leaders, including mediators and peace builders. This platform includes women from Ukraine and Afghanistan. And let me just say, previous speakers have referred to the situation of women and girls in Afghanistan is particularly appalling. And I could not agree more with the Secretary General on his appeal in this respect. What we try to do with our network is to support women that are involved in peace-building activities and allow them to share experience and practices in a safe space.
Ms. Stella Roner-Grubacic.
With the return of war in Europe and against the backdrop of increasing pushbacks on women's rights and gender equality, it is more important than ever to safeguard and promote our shared values, as well as to uphold international commitments and a rules-based multilateral order with the UN at its core. This holds true for the WPS agenda adopted with UN's Security Council Resolution 1325 as much as for any other international instrument or Security Council resolution. The Albanian presidency of the Council is very right in pointing out in its concept note that regional organizations have a critical role to play, but also in drawing our attention to the fact that, in times of turmoil especially, it all too often happens that commitments on women, peace and security are interrupted, and women, whether they be journalists, peace builders, members of parliament, or representatives of civil society, see their work, safety and security threatened or worse. Unfortunately, as EU Ambassador for Gender and Diversity, I have witnessed several occasions when this happens, and I can testify on the basis of my own experience how difficult it is to ensure women's full, equal and meaningful participation, despite the positive messages of intent shared by all. Even in times of immediate crisis and political turmoil, women continue to be left out of the political dialogue about their country's future.